Hello friends, how are you? Welcome to the Japan Study Center. Today we are going to see the chapter of geography and what is our topic today? Conservation of resource here. That is important. Conservation of resource. Conservation of resource means their dedications as a plant use as well as a reuse of the natural resource by the avoiding there is a wastage, misuse and overuse. There is the most important here conservation of resource here a wastage, misuse and overuse. Depletion of resource is a matter of great concern today. In order to be reach the maximum production limits, and we are using all those resources which are in fact there is a property of future generation. In fact, as the concept of sustainable development here, and resources are the inheritance which one of generation of human society has to be passed on to a next one. No renewable resource may be come to an end after some time. There is an important point here. No renewable resource may be come to an end after some time. Therefore, striking a balance between the growth of population and utilizations of resource is absolutely is a necessary. That is important here. Of course, such a balance and bound to vary in the time and space. Obviously, we have to be look at the balance between the population and resource in a regional or country as a dynamic rather than static one. Any imbalance in either of two may be scrapped their continuity of our economics and social and culture development. So resource should be used in a planet where that is a imbalance does not be taken place. That is important here. The so resource is should be a use in a plant and where to the imbalance does not be take place here. Our next topic is the most important here methods of conservation of resource. There is a most important point arrive here methods of conservation of resource here. The first point according to here it is a necessity to the creator awareness. It is a necessity to the create awareness about the preservation and conservation of resource among the people. They should be made aware of harmful result of large scale of destruction of the natural resource. There is a most important first point here and the next point here afforestation. Afforestation is the preventing the falling of the immature and young tree and creating awareness amongst the local people about the planting and nurturing trees may be help in a conserving forest. There is the second point is also important here and the next here third trace of farming. Trace farming in the hill regions a contour plunging controlling the shifting and cultivation and overgrazing and plunging in the gulf. Some of are the impure method of the soil conservation here. The next point here fourth construction of dam to be impound rainwater. Use of sprinkler and drip and trickle irrigation techniques. Recycling of water for industrial and domestical purpose will be help in a conservation of the enable water resource. The next point here, minerals are no renewable resource, so they need to be conserved through their efficient utilization and development of better technology and extraction and purification, recycling of mineral and use of substitute. The next here, 6 point, non-conventional resource of energy here. The non-conventional source of energy here is an important example. Solar, wind and water will be have to be developed in order to be save a conservational source of energy. There is important in the point in the box. There is a note down your note copy. There is a most important point here. A conclusion also. Conservation resource a mean dedicates and plan use of natural resource by avoiding their wastage, misuse and overuse And next year, it is necessary to the create awareness among to people about the preservation and conservation of resource here. And the next also, no renewable resource need to be conserved and used with utmost of care. There is an important point here. Next topic is the most important here, a policy on conservation of resource. There is a most important point arrive here, policy on conservation of resource. With the growing convenience of environment conservation, the efficient use of resource has become important for a developing country like India. There is an important point here. The source has become important for a developing country like India. We have to be increasing our R&D, research and development. There is an important point here, increasing of research and development here, effort to the exposure of the new resource. Device is a technology to the minimize, best and conserve no renewable resource. The government of India has formulated several policy and program to the implement for conservation of our abiotic resource. The first here, a policy here, a Ministry of Forest and Environmental was created at union level in a country. By now, all the state government have also created a independent Ministry of Forest and Environment. There is a most important point here. Union level in a 1980 is to give to high priority to issue of relative forest and environment in a country. There is an important point here. The next important policy here, National Forest Policy of 1950. There is the most important policy here. National Forest Policy of 1950 was revised in 1988 to make on effective tools as per the current need to be protection, conservation and development of forest in a country. Under this policy, social forestry scheme was launched to increase a green coverage is a produce and supply of fuel, wood, etc. That is the second point is the most important. National Forest Policy of 1950 was received in 1988. And next year, National Land Use and Conservation Board were established in 1983. This is important. National Land Use and Conservation Board were established in 1983 and restructured in 1985 for the land resource conservation and preparation of prospective plan for optimum utilization of land resource here. That is an important point. The National Water Policy was adopted in 1987, which accord to be high priority to drinking water flowing by irrigational hydropower generation and investigational industries and other use of water important here. The next point is the most important here, a national mineral policy formed in 1990 has allowed to the board domestic and foreign enterprise to be invest in a mineral extraction and export here. It is also allowed the authority to the permit investment in a mineral extension directly under the Union Ministry of Mines. There is an important policy here. A new agriculture policy of encouragement in a giving to use eco-friendly and sustainable agriculture technology is a biotechnology. There is a most important point here. The National Forest Policy has been to the launching for the protection and development of forests. There is a most important point in the box. Note down your notebook. The National Forest Policy has been to launch it for the protection and development of forest. The next point here, National Water Policy was adopted to the conserve and preserve water resource. And next year, new agriculture policy places a primers use of biotechnology here.